Yeah, maybe just an overview of what we're hoping to do today. So my name's Mike. I'll be sharing a bit about presence and engaging in mission, and then Wayne and Steph are going to do a great job of explaining some of what presence looks like on the ground level. And then we're going to have some Q&R. I think I'm finally old enough to know that it's not Q&A. A younger Mike would have thought that I'd have answers for you, but we'll provide responses. I think the church has done a good job of changing that A to an R over time. And then we'll have some table conversation. And so I hope that you're engaged and participating. Maybe a bit of background about myself. I grew up kind of in the surrounding area, Wellesley. My family helped plant Pathway BIC Church with Harold Albrecht at the time. Harold was the lead pastor, my mom was the family pastor. So we were in this area up until around junior youth age. We moved to Fergus, where my parents co-pastored at a country church out in Elora called Bethel Mennonite. And so I actually grew up hymns as we were singing one today. And so as Ted's talking about songs, I'm thinking, what was the hymn that stood out? And Come Thou Fount's always been my favorite hymn. But when you see a congregation that actually knows how to sing different parts, I'd have to say, Were You There was the one that kind of hits, where it's like, were you there when they crucified the Lord? Oh, and then when you're in a congregation where everyone knows what they're doing, as a teenager, you just kind of step back, you're like, what just happened, right? Because everything gets hit in different melodies. And so, grew up in a country church, and at a young age of 19, finally discovered the nearness of God's kingdom and presence of our Lord. And so, by God's grace, I got a year of discipleship. We moved back to KW, and I was living in this area with no hope and no life. And then all of a sudden, life started erupting into my soul through Jesus. And God gave me about a year where I was just hopping church to church, trying to figure out how to get discipled as best as I could. The majority of that was at WMB, but I just wanted to glean as much as I could about how to follow Jesus. And that led to a realization that I got to apply what I'm learning. And so at 20, I started living into mission. I kind of quit my job and moved to Toronto for a year to learn a bit more about mission, and then came back from that hungry and called to be more downtown and applying what I had learned in the context of downtown Kitchener. And so a lot of my 20s was spent downtown with people experiencing different troubles like homelessness or housing or just estrangement from community in general and needing support in that way. And so I did a lot of work through Ray of Hope as well as some other shelters and stuff like that. And for some reason, God called me back to WMB a few years ago, and I did some young adult ministry for 4 years. And then the role switched into where I'm currently at as a pastor, and we're switching some of the titles over this year. Originally it was pastor of urban ministry, but now we're kind of going by titles like local missional mobilizer. And so Steph, Wayne, and I are here to help mobilize mission locally and care for the congregation to help equip us. And so when I think of mission and WMB, the last few weeks especially, I've realized that it's not so much a yellow flag that needs to be waved about, oh, we need to be on mission. It's more of a red flag of just realizing, as I try to get people mobilized into mission, it's really hard to mobilize people into mission when we're not doing as much missionally as a congregation. And I've been doing some work as well as Ted with youth in realizing when we boil it all down to what I want to talk about today is the need for the character of hospitality and how to actually care for people well, and also have the discipline of being uncomfortable and caring for new people. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, is presence and hospitality. And as I say, we're raising this red flag. I'm saying that to a bunch of people with a history of learning and knowing hospitality. So I'm really excited for today because I think we're going to have a good discussion. So let me pray. Yeah, Jesus, thank you for your leadership. God, you were the invisible God to us, and we knew your attributes through your story, that you were a God of compassion and grace, and you directed your people, and you stayed by your people, but then you became visible. Jesus, thank you for coming to earth. Thank you for showing us what it's like to live this life and being the perfect example. Thank you for dying on the cross, paying our debt, showing us that sin and death are no longer counted against us, but yet we have life in you. We join in your suffering, and we rise with you in your resurrection. And thank you that you are a God that reveals yourself as alive, that we know we can depend on you because you are here with us right now. You rose from the grave, and that you sent your Holy Spirit to empower us to accomplish your ministry. And so would we draw near to you today, as well as learn from you and just commit our lives to you in discipleship and in mission, your mission. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. So when we think of mission, oftentimes we think of the doing aspect, which is fair. It is the activating our faith piece of it. But oftentimes it gets separated from discipleship. And so when I see mission, I see it as the same coin as discipleship. And so if we're following and trusting Jesus, we're going and we're learning from him, this God who became visible to us. We learn about who Jesus is in the scriptures. We want our lives to look like the Gospels, this radical love for the poor, this ability to see the oppressed become free, this ability to partner with God in his mission, to see the church flourish and believers come and worship the living God and start tearing down idols in their life. We want to see this mission come to be. And so discipleship without mission just becomes a lot of people learning about God and it becoming internalized, but never really getting to see God and what he's really wanting to do, which is to he's reconciled his people to himself, and he wants us to be ambassadors of reconciliation. And so he wants us to be in the game. How many watched the Jays this last week? Yeah. Did you see that clip where it's just the audience, all the people in the stands cheering for Springer in the home run? Like, in a lot of ways it feels like discipleship is the church being just in the stands, cheering God on and what he's doing, whereas mission is actually playing the game. Mission is the baseball players actually getting to hit that home run, getting to strike out, getting to learn from their mistakes. And so when we think of mission, we think of the application of our faith. And what ends up happening with mission is God does a beautiful work of actually showing us. It's actually a really cool indicator. When we go on mission, we also get discipled, because then our heart's actually revealed where we're truly at. And so I've seen that time and time again. Head knowledge, someone says, yeah, I love people, then all of a sudden they're in front of people trying to love them, and a lot of funny things are showing up, right? And so we want both in. We want people to be discipled and learn how to follow Jesus, but when you follow Jesus, you kind of have to sell everything and go where he's going, wherever he's leading, right? And so he intertwined the two, his mission as well as discipleship. Today I just want to highlight a story in the Bible. So when we think of Jesus, we want to think of Jesus as a table that we get invited into if we're humble and we turn away from our worldly way of thinking. We realize that there's this king in the room that has welcomed us to sit at the table with him. We get to join with him at the table, and that table of fellowship changes us. The king is at the table telling us, we're eating with him, and he's telling us things about the kingdom, and it changes our being. It changes who we are. It changes our perspective. And so today I want to talk about just hospitality and how, what type of tables are we sitting at? And so when I think of table fellowship, I think of Galatians chapter 2. And so here Paul is coming against these people. Like, think of it like high school, where there's all these different cliques, and there's the football team, and you're new to the high school, and you want to sit at the football table, but yet the football team saying you have to be a football player before sitting at the table. This is the ridiculousness of we're 15 or plus so years into Christian, like Jesus has died and now Christianity is growing, but we're 15 years into it, and yet we're still trying to figure out how to transition from this Jewish culture into this Christian culture. And so the Jewish people are trying to put all these different rules and regulations saying you must first do this before you become Christian. You must first get circumcised. You must first abide to the law, and then we can sit with you at the table. And so Paul's trying to clean up this mess with this letter, and also trying to affirm that he's actually a partner with the other apostles. And so he goes through this long story of how he's actually in relationship with the other apostles, and he even shows that he is an equal to them because he's able to call out Peter. And so it's right there where he's talking about he gathered with Peter 14 years after becoming Christian, and he's had a revelation about the reality of not needing to be circumcised before entering faith. And so he's collaborating with Peter, and then Peter says, yeah, keep on this mission. We'll stick to our ministry of the Jewish people. You go to the Gentiles. And he says one thing: they requested only that we remember the poor, the very thing I was eager to do. And then it goes on to say, but when Peter came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face, because he had clearly done wrong. Until certain people came from James, he had been eating with the Gentiles. But when they arrived, he stopped doing this and separated himself, because he was afraid of those who were pro-circumcision. And the rest of the Jews also joined with him in this hypocrisy, so that even Barnabas was led astray with them by the hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not behaving consistently with the truth of the gospel, I said to Peter in front of them all, if you, although you are a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, how can you try to force the Gentiles to live like Jews? So within mission, we have our pre-contemplated people. We have people who it's not even on their radar, that even in the church, it's not even on their radar that we ought to live our lives in mission, to live our lives abiding to God and trying to work out this reconciliation piece, to live out his kingdom and see his kingdom advance in our lives, to proclaim the gospel to all people, to make disciples. That's God's mission. So it's not even on the radar. We have contemplative people. We have people where they've thought about it, but they actually either don't want to engage yet or don't know how to engage. And then we have people who are forming. These are the people we love in leadership, because you can just tell the wheels are turning. God is showing them things about his kingdom and who he is time and time again. There's people at church who are always going up to the front asking for prayer, always telling the pastors or the other people about what they're reading in the Bible, always telling people about how they met this person in their neighborhood and got to pray for them, got to share the gospel with them. They're just forming what it looks like to be Christian and follow Jesus. And then we have this contextualization phase where we've learned something, and like I said, I had to put my faith into gear, and I had enough knowledge. I needed to actually practice what I was doing. And I think a lot of us stick in that contextualization phase. We just, okay, heard from you, Lord, I'm going to go and do it, I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll read my Bible and then continue to learn from you, but really how I apply it is just how I learned in that formation season. And then lastly, this last season of correction or enhancement. And that's kind of where the story is at. Something that Peter's really familiar with. If you know the story of Peter, Jesus is really good at going on mission with them, and then Peter would say these wild things or do these wild things, and because they're on mission and Jesus is able to actually identify that, yeah, you're not loving the Samaritan really well. Yeah, you are trying to disrupt my mission, and so get behind me, Satan, that famous saying. And so Jesus is able to identify things and correct things within Peter. And so he's used to it. His whole journey, he goes from being a Jewish man whose tribe instinct is to only care about Jewish people. And all along the way, Jesus is making it really clear that I made Abraham a blessing I gave him blessings so that he could be a blessing to others, and I want the whole world to be blessed by this. And so move out of your Jewish understanding and get more of a worldwide perspective, and I'm going to show you that physically by walking through Samaria, these people who are different and the enemy, well, not the enemy, but the hated people of the Israelites. And Jesus went through Samaria instead of going around it like everybody else did. Jesus loved the centurion and actually said he had great faith. And then he turns the tables in the temple in the court of the Gentiles and reveals that God is someone who cares about people deeply. And this would have been ingrained in Peter time and time again so that he actually gets it, that God loves all people. And so I'm sure for that first 15 years of his discipleship, when Jesus has ascended and he's now the leader of the church, I'm sure that's ingrained in him. It's how he's practicing it out. But it's funny how sometimes old habits kind of die hard. And so here he is, because of peer pressure, because of social circumstances, this one message, part of the message that he's been learning has been kind of disrupted by his peers and his friends. And now all of a sudden, he's actually kind of anti-gospel because he's now not sitting with the very people that Jesus loves. And so oftentimes when we think of hospitality, we think of these hard seasons where we learn things because of our uncomfortability. We learn things because they were difficult, and we develop a practice of doing difficult things for Jesus, and it becomes normal. And so I think of it in two ways. I think of it, there's tables that are kind of organic, where we're learning and we're growing, and then there's tables that are kind of built out of our institution. And so I would call these right here institutional tables. Like, these tables that we have of fellowship are things that have been developed. At one point, they could have been more like, what's this going to be? Gareth and the leadership team said, okay, we need to pray into this and develop what these tables are going to look like. How do we actually do this? Food for thought and leaning into the uncomfortability of what's next. But yet, we do it again and again, and it becomes something that is familiar and known. And most of you came in here just going, it's food for thought. I'm just going to show up and have chit-chat with my peers, right? And so part of what mission right now is actually teaching people to get out of their comfort and realizing the institutional tables are here for a good reason. We have programs and stuff happening at WMB so that we can build our fellowship. But that's not the full picture of discipleship, right? And so as I've been doing work with people, I've been realizing that hospitality is this red flag that has been missing from the younger generations. And as I stand here today, I know that there's people in all spectrum of mission. There's some pre-contemplative, contemplative, some people who've been formed, some people who've done amazing works with Jesus, and some people, like as Ted said, learn from mistakes time and time again. And when I think of what younger generations need, the bar isn't actually a call to seniors to go fix homelessness or to go radically do something crazy. The call actually is actually a really simple call, is to come alongside people and to be present and let your story, let who you've been be, let your discipleship help, as Ted was saying, help the younger generations understand how to kind of live into this friction, this uncomfortable calling that we have. I'll end with kind of one last story. Like, when I was growing up, my mom put a boiling pot of water on the stove, and she turned her back for a second. It was steaming and boiling, and me as a 3-year-old came and pulled it off and poured it all onto myself. And so the floor's steaming, I'm drenched wet. My mom freaks out, she goes and runs me to the bathtub and starts pouring cold water on her child, as you would, right? And then she realized I was undamaged from that. I didn't have a single spot or thing wrong with me from that. So she's going, this is amazing, wow. So what does she do? She calls up her mother, my grandma, and says, you wouldn't believe what happened. And my grandma, without even thinking about it, says, of course, I pray for your kids every single day. And so I think, as Ted said, prayer is a big piece of what you can do for the younger generation. I grew up knowing that my grandma was praying for me. I grew up knowing that there's power of God. But then my grandma died. And at her funeral, all these stories came out about a different side that I never got to have conversation with her about. These stories of the Depression where people would be walking for hours along the railroad to get work somewhere, or in hopes to get work somewhere. And here my grandparents are dirt poor, trying to live and realizing there's a need, and them themselves being on a dirt poor budget as well, right? But yet somehow figuring out how to be hospitable to these people and feeding these people as they come through. Like, these are stories that are in the room of stories where you've all came across diversity and overcome it. And as I do work with younger people especially, I've been realizing that. As I do work with our street involved people, and when Steph and Wayne do work with people, a lot of these things come down to either needing someone to come alongside in the hard times and actually just show that we're here, we're with you, and we can talk it through, we can pray about it, but we're here, and just showing them that they have someone to walk with through the hard times. Or the other thing that I think is desperately needed is this next generation needs to be taught kind of practically and physically what it means to be hospitable, to teach them what it's like to invite people over. Same with the downtown communities. So many of the life skills that we just take for granted because we were raised in a home that taught us those skills. Like for me, I'm fortunate enough that I made my first turkey dinner at, I think, grade 2 or grade 3. Like I had a mom that had 8 kids and probably out of desperation just started training us how to do practical things, right?
Yes.
But some of these concepts are foreign to people, and I think the beautiful thing about senior ministry is that you have so much ingrained in you, and you get to just show up. Like, doesn't that just kind of make it easier on you, just realizing, like, I still pursue Jesus, I still live in the uncomfortability, but yet I get to show up and let God do his thing in and through me. And so that's my call for you today, and that's the call of presence, is if we just come alongside people, not from a savior complex type of view, saying, oh, I'm here to save you, but from a partnership with God view, realizing that he's the savior and he's doing the work of reconciliation in and through us. So I'm going to invite Stephanie up to help kind of shape what does that look like, day-to-day presence? What does that look like to have fellowship and hospitality with people? And we'll have some Q&R later. Yeah.
As tall as Mike. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having us here this morning. So I'm just going to build a little bit on what Mike was talking about and focus on relationships. So relationships are so key as we invite people to trust and follow Jesus. But I didn't always realize exactly how important relationships were. So I've been growing myself in that understanding, I'd say especially over the last 5 years or so. When I first started working in the neighborhood that I'm connected with, I've been there 17, 18 years now. It's a neighborhood pretty close to the Waterloo site. I was the one that kind of went in and I was making all the decisions. So I was deciding what programs we were going to be running, when they were going to be running. I found WMBers to run them, and then it was, okay, neighborhood, just come and participate in the things that we have planned for you. Then several years ago, I came across a book called Toxic Charity by Bob Lupton. And that book talks about the way charity typically is done and how it can unintentionally be harmful. So typical charity, if I were to summarize it, would be an exchange of a material resource between strangers. And the book goes on to talk about more relational ways of doing things. And it also mentioned an organization, Focused Community Strategies in Atlanta, that does a really, really good job at engaging in the local low-income neighborhood that they find themselves in. So I checked them out, and I actually had a chance to spend a year in a learning cohort with them through their training programs. And that experience was huge in forming how I now engage in the community that I'm working in. And one of the interesting pieces of that year is that we had some of the people from the neighborhood that were engaging with us do a survey. And what they said in that survey was that they felt really loved by WMB, but that it was in the context of the programs that we were running, and that there wasn't really any relationship outside of those structured programs that we would be running once, twice, 3 times a week. And that was really eye-opening for me, that they felt the love and the care that we wanted to offer, but that it was just kind of kept in this box. So they only experienced it if we were there from 3:30 to 5 for program X or Y. So in my journey of kind of moving from a programmed, we'll just do these things, to more relationship-based, I have kind of thrown out my agenda. Not the agenda of wanting to help people trust and follow Jesus, but the agenda that comes after that. And I just now work really hard at trying to be present. So one big way that I've been doing for probably 3 years or so is every Tuesday afternoon I am in the neighborhood. So I use one of the office spaces in one of the buildings, and everybody knows that Tuesday from 1 till 3:30, Stephanie's in the office space. And I've kind of taken it over because I'm the only one that uses it. So I have tea in there, we have games in there, I have a bookshelf of books that my hope is that parents come and get some books, kind of like a little library that's kind of right there for them. Gets used a little bit, but just people know that I'm there. And we have lots of women at this point that just come to hang out. Again, no agenda. We're not there to teach something or to impart some wisdom. We're just there. I'm just there to be present, to provide a space for people to come and to be together, to have some tea, to play some games. And often they just want to just sit and be and just visit with one another. I also just try to create really simple opportunities, reasons to be together. So one of those examples is a ladies' night that I try to run once a month. And again, it's not about a program or that we're going to do these specific things. It's just a reason to invite people to be together. So we do typically a potluck, so everybody brings something to share. And we have done, last November, we had someone from the community lead some Christmas crafts in last November. Over the summer, we went to Laurel Creek and had a campfire, so we all brought our potluck meal to Laurel Creek, and we just rented a campsite. We didn't stay overnight, but just rented it for the evening and had a campfire. We've had one of the ladies in the neighborhood teach us how to make bread in the kitchen, so we're all around the kitchen, all making our own bread, and then while it's baking, we're sitting around the other counter eating our appetizers that we all brought. Just being together and visiting. I spend a lot of time just going for coffee with people, going for walks with people. Just have a chance to take people out and to say, somebody's listening, I'm here. Like I don't always know what to say. I don't have answers. I'm not able to fix things that are going on. But just having somebody that they can talk to and vent to and to encourage them means a lot. I go to people's apartments and spend time there. I help them fill out paperwork, apply for Ontario Works, apply for the Canadian Dental Program, try to decipher emails that they get from the school and everything like that. We are partnering with the neighborhood for clothing sales and the Christmas toy store. So it's not only just providing like donated clothes or the new toys for the Christmas store, but we get to partner by working alongside them as they run the stores that they want to run for their community. And yes, there's still programs. So there's a kids program that we run once a week on Wednesdays after school. There's a group of preteen guys that we get together with once a month. But it's no longer just about the program. It's not about what program are we going to run and how many people are we going to get and then that success. It's running the programs so that we can further relationships. We can go deeper in relationship. The kids program is one of the ways that I meet families. I wouldn't have an opportunity to reach out to mom if little Johnny wasn't at Kids Corner every week. So the programs aren't just about themselves, it's about trying to further relationship in the community. So as I think about the transition from programming and just doing things to being present, I so love that I have kind of done that learning and made that switch. Because I love being in the neighborhood. I'm there a lot. I'm there every Tuesday afternoon. I'm there picking people up. I'm there going for walks with people. I'm there going into and visiting in people's homes. And it gives me an opportunity just to run into people because I'm just there all the time. And it makes those relationships more authentic because I'm not there just meeting with them from 3:30 to 5 on a Wednesday because that's when I'm there, and then I fly out and then I fly back in the next week at Wednesday from 3:30 to 5. So just being there, and sometimes people say like, you should just move in, like you're here all the time, which is exactly what I want people to think, right? That they see me and they don't even blink an eye anymore because, yep, Steph's just here, I'm part of the neighborhood. So I love that part. I remembered yesterday as I was thinking about this, there was a time I was grocery shopping at Freshco, and I was packing up my groceries, and I recognized a man from the neighborhood, but we had never met, never even said hi. We waved sometimes, but I don't get the sense he really wants to be approached, so I just kind of waved. But that day in Freshco, he came up to me and asked me a question about how he could get help about the apartment building that he's in through housing. So I was able to I had just a sheet with contact names up on the office door, and I said, if you go to the office door, there's names and contact information right there that you can reach out to get help. And then off he went, but I just kind of chuckled, and I was like, we've never actually spoken, but I was familiar enough that I don't even think he knows why I'm there or who I am, but I'm there often enough that he knows I'm part of the community and trusted enough to come and just ask me a question since I'm packing my groceries in Freshco. So awesome. That was pretty cool. And sometimes, because it is a shift, right? We're so used to, we have to be busy, we have to be doing things, we have to accomplish things, that I have to remind myself that, yes, it's okay that my job is just to be present. That I get paid to go and hang out on a Tuesday afternoon and build relationships, that I get paid to go to sit around a fire with some ladies and just enjoy time together. And not necessarily accomplish things, but I would argue we are accomplishing a lot of things. It's just different types of things. It's not tasks, it's not programs, but it's relationship, it's trust that's being built. And as that trust builds, as that relationship builds, you have the opportunity then to explore faith. You have those deeper conversations where you can pray for people. People come to you and ask for prayer. And that doesn't happen when you I call it parachute in for a program and parachute out. It happens when you're just there. Some days I go home feeling really honored that I've been invited into people's mess, the mess of their lives. It's very humbling just to walk away going, I can't believe everything that person just shared with me. And again, I can't fix it, but I've been invited into that. Or being invited by one person into another person's mess. So there was one day I was there, had just introduced a teenager in the community with a mentor that we had set up for him, somebody from WMB, and we had spent a good hour and a half just walking around and getting to know each other. And as I'm walking past one of the buildings back to my car, I hear my name being yelled from somewhere. So I'm kind of turning around trying to find out where my name's being yelled from. And there's a gentleman who I know on the third floor of the building saying, hey, can you help so-and-so with, and there was this woman who was talking to two police officers that I had just walked past But it turns out she was new to the neighborhood. There was some confusion about which park she was allowed to bring her kid to, and police were called, and anyway. But I was able to go and kind of just nicely insert myself into that conversation and get to know this new person in the neighborhood. And now she's hugely connected, she's hugely involved in what's going on in the neighborhood. But it was just really neat again to have this gentleman up on the third floor yelling my name, asking me to see if I could help this other person with what was going on with her. So that's pretty cool. And being involved in people's lives has really been eye-opening for me as well. And just realizing that there is a world out there that is very different than mine. And just trying to understand that world and find just common ground and loving people through that as well. There's joy in having kids, as I'm walking through the neighborhood yelling, "Hi, Steph!" And again, I'm turning around, kind of, where is this voice coming from? And there's kids on the balcony waving, and the joy of having infants and toddlers that are so willing to come to me because they know me. I'm around enough. I'm hanging out with them and their parents enough. So there's one little guy that I know, and I always, like kids, they're busy with whatever's going on in the environment, and I'm like, "Where's my hug?" So he comes running up to me, and initially I'd be like, 1 arm, 2 arms, squeeze, just because this is how you hug. And now when I pick him up, you can tell he's waiting for it, right? So he'll kind of put his arms like this, but then he's waiting for the squeeze part. And you don't get to that place by just parachuting in and parachuting out. It's by being present. And as I was mentioning earlier about accomplishing things, I'd say being present has been way more fruitful than programs, than being very structured and programming. I see neighbors get to meet one another who live in the same building for years and never have actually said hi to one another, or maybe it's like a stranger kind of hi, but now it's a hey, they talk and they meet as they're coming and going. I see them helping one another. I see them teaching people who aren't familiar with the bus system how to take the bus and become independent in that way. There's a lady, middle-aged lady, she's a single mom, but her boys are grown out of the house. And so unfortunately she spends her days all day, every day in front of the TV. That's life for her. But she is faithfully there every Tuesday afternoon. And because of that, she's gotten to meet some other women in the neighborhood, specifically one mom that has a little 1.5-year-old. And this little guy's name is very similar to this lady's name, which just tickled her pink that they were so close. And you've never met a happier baby. And so now I hear that she's not spending all of her time in her days in front of the TV, that when these other women are out front, she's joining them and spending time with them, hanging out with the little one, but also with the ladies, which was not happening before. There's, I don't know, those of you who attend the Waterloo site, have you had any of the bread that's made once a month? Yeah, if you have, it's delicious. If you haven't, you are missing out. One of the ladies that comes on Tuesday afternoons just started making bread at home, and then started bringing it every once in a while on Tuesday afternoon. It's delicious. And then we were talking about a ladies' night, and she's like, "Yeah, I could bring my bread, as part of the potluck." And I'm like, "Could you teach us how to make the bread?" So, like I said earlier, that's one of the things that we did one month, is she had us in the kitchen. We all had our own dough, and she taught us how to make 2 different kinds. We did a braided bread and her sauces that she puts on it and everything. And then over time, could I make some bread for the church? Absolutely. And so once a month, she gets up with her 2 little ones, so 1.5 and SK, I think. And they're up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. She brings them with another woman from the neighborhood, Nikki, who's a big part of our church community as well. And they come and they make bread. They come, they mix it all up, and they go home for 2 hours while it rises, and then they come back and they form it and they bake it, because she has been part enough of the community that she wanted to do something in return. So that's pretty cool. And then you have Nikki. Many of you might know Nikki. She's from the neighborhood, but also hugely invested in the church and has been baptized. So you got Nikki telling all her neighbors why they need to start considering Jesus, as they share with her kind of what's been going on in their life. She's not shy. Saying, you know what, maybe you need to start thinking about Jesus and checking out church and stuff. So that's been pretty cool. We have people coming to Alpha. We have a few people in Practicing the Way right now. We have people coming on Sunday mornings. And so it's just so nice to see the results of relationship and being present. There's one couple at WMB who have really embraced this idea. They have almost adopted a single mom and her 4 kids. They are very involved. The school knows the woman's name because she's their contact, because she really helps them with that. She drives them to appointments, helps arrange appointments, because English is a bit of a barrier, filling out paperwork. But what they also get is they're getting invited to birthday parties for the kids. The kids became Canadian citizens, and we got to be at the ceremony and then went out for lunch together with them. That couple has taken the kids skating for the first time. So they've really become friends and are integrated in one another's lives, which is amazing. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a teenager that has now a mentor from WMU. They get together once a week and just talk about life. And there's an interest in faith, and they were planning on starting to watch the Alpha video series, just the 2 of them. So those are the things that can happen when you're just present. People, they just want a friend. They want someone to talk to spend time with, to be able to share life with. And we don't need to fix things. We can't fix things. They don't want us to fix things. Yeah, we can offer guidance, suggestions if that's what they're wanting, but really they just want to be with somebody. So the message that the 3 of us, Mike, myself, and Wayne, want you to hear today is that there's a role for you. There's a place for you. And we actually need you. We can't do this on our own. We need you to consider what being present could look like for each of you. Some of that's praying, some of that might be connecting with somebody more directly, but the invitation is there, that we welcome you, and we need you. We need you part of this. So, thanks.
How's everybody doing today? If you would like to stand up and stretch, if you're feeling sleepy, please do, or grab a coffee. To start, I feel like I can now better relate to seniors after I had a colonoscopy on Tuesday. I only passed out once at the hospital, but it turns out I do have a couple polyps, so it was good that I was there. I did prep most of this on Monday when I was fasting and preparing, and I haven't felt like myself the last couple days since, so this is as good as it gets for you guys today. Over the past year, I've gradually been shifting one-on-one coaching and supports to either those in our immediate neighborhood of the church or those that are engaging in the church in other ways, like Sundays or Alpha or kids in the youth ministry. And although a few people have been upset and some more disappointed, most people have been understanding. The emphasis has always been on relationships and long-term well-being and invitation to the life of the church. But this past year has been less and less about the food cards. And there's a good number of people that I connect with without any type of food cards, that just want someone to talk to be prayed over, and to work on goals and budgeting. I have a story from the annual report that sums things up well. I'm just wondering, did any of you have a chance to look over the annual report? It's really good and engaging. I encourage you to check that out online, or you can ask Gareth. Maybe there's some hard copies left. How about the AGM this past Sunday? Did anyone have a chance to attend? A few people? Okay, lots of people. I'm just going to read the story. I'm less likely to go down rabbit trails like Mike if I read it. It's entitled "A Journey of Faith and Flourishing, A's Story." For more than 16 years, A has been quietly and faithfully growing in her relationship with Jesus through the WB community. Her journey began with Barnabas coaching, where she's been a faithful participant, attending workshops, connecting with a prayer partner, and stewarding her finances more carefully than anyone I've ever met. Her commitment to personal growth has been steady and inspiring. Her boys were part of the first 10 years of Wumba, growing up in a nurturing environment of faith and friendship. And through it all, A has remained deeply compassionate, always seeking ways to serve those in need across KW and within her circles. This year marked a beautiful deepening in A's spiritual journey. In the spring, she joined Alpha, courageously exploring the foundations of faith and life's big questions alongside others seeking Jesus. It was a season of honest reflection, meaningful conversations, and new relationships. This fall, she stepped into practicing the way, embracing intentional rhythms of spiritual formation, and also hopes to begin attending Sunday services, which is a significant and exciting next step in her walk with Christ. A's story is a powerful reminder that transformation often unfolds over time, through faithful community, intentional discipleship, and the gentle work of the Spirit. We celebrate all that God has done in her life and look forward with joy to the ways her relationship with Jesus and with WB will continue to flourish. So it highlights some of the main core things about one-on-one coaching. The idea of a relationship over many years, the gradual work of the Spirit, how things started off with the practical aspect of budgeting, but then branched out to many points of connection with me and others. That prayer is a foundational part. Her connection to Alpha, and then practicing the way in church. And there's a whole lot more to her story with many ups and downs, and she's had many struggles, but there is hope and she's moving forward. Another shift for me is connecting with our local Waterloo neighborhood intentionally, even if it's not with those that are struggling financially. One thing that we're trying to start doing is to welcome new people into the neighborhood. So I have connection with a real estate agent. She lets me know who has moved in. So we haven't done it yet, but this week, so we have these welcome mugs that Leah designed. So we got a hey there neighbor, and then on the back, a map of the neighborhood with WB Church highlighted. And it also has some information in here about you belong here at the church, and just as a touch point to new people in the neighborhood. Ideally, we would have others deliver them other than me, and especially those people in our church that live in the neighborhood. We're trying to build connections with our local school, Sandown. You may have heard it in the news a bit. The Sandown school population has tripled since last April because Elizabeth Ziegler was closed. So this past summer they had a bank of 12 portables installed, so it's exploded in size. There is a new principal, so it's taking a bit of time, but we're just trying to figure out how we can offer support, and with things like tutoring, maybe lunchtime or bus supervision, which is our small paid positions. Maybe something like being a grandparent for students that don't have them, or in a specific area of expertise. So we're just trying to figure out how best to connect with Sandown, or could be any school that you're close to. So just some overall themes, both from one-to-one coaching and from the neighborhood, would be to be present and available, to listen and remember, to build relationships, to be open to people that are different than you and not being judgmental, to be open to the Spirit and to pray for and with folks, and to be authentic. And I'm not trying to talk myself out of my staff role, but I honestly do believe that most people could do these or parts of it. So some ways to get involved in this. The first big one being just to be present and build relationships with your neighbors. On a Sunday morning, if you don't recognize someone, they might be one-to-one connections or from the neighborhood or just wherever you are. Another way to get involved would be your local school, whether it's Sandown in our neighborhood or one in your neighborhood. You may have heard about Tools for Schools. That's where we have in August, traditionally, a store where parents can either purchase school supplies at greatly reduced cost or volunteer their time and pick up their items. But we also hope to do maybe something in January to help restock some classrooms at our Sandown schools, so you might see that. There's also Adopt a Family, which would include the person I talked about as well as a few people that Steph has talked about. But Adopt a Family is described as the Barnabas missions is deeply connected to those who, without support, do not have the means to provide a Christmas meal and gifts for their family, while also keeping up with their other basic needs. Our Adopt a Family ministry provides gifts and a turkey dinner to help make Christmas special. One thing that will be a bit different about this year is we're hoping to sponsor some single adults just as a way to encourage them and connect with them. Also from the annual report, I wrote this about Adopt a Family. This past Christmas, thanks to your incredible support, 28 families experienced not just the joy of gifts and a Christmas meal, but the warmth of human connection. Sponsors didn't just give, they showed up. One family was welcomed into a sponsor's home for dinner. Another shared a worship service and potluck together. A workplace even stepped up to sponsor 2 additional families and donated a bunch of turkeys. Your kindness created more than holiday cheer. It built bridges, sparked hope, and reminded us that what community truly means. And here's what some of the adopted families had to say. I'll just read 2 of them. One person said, "Please extend my heartfelt thanks to the church community for this. It truly warms my heart how much you care. Everything we receive is enormously appreciated and cherished." And another person said, "It is our first Christmas in this country, and thanks to all the kind gestures of the church and to all of you, we feel at home. A hug and the doors of our house will always be open to you." So with Adopt a Family, you'll see information about that in the newsletter coming out soon. So if that interests you, whether sponsoring a family or an individual, or maybe providing a turkey or a gift card, that would be another way to connect. But I think the main one would be the first, just to be present, to listen, to encourage, to be open, available, and authentic in your relationships, wherever they might be.